our national law enforcement and intelligence correspondent, Tom Winter, who has this reporting. Tom, what do we know?
Yeah, I have this reporting along with my colleague, Kate. Jonathan Dienst here, our chief investigative reporter from WNBC. And what we're being told is that at some point here, in obviously the last 24, 48 hours, law enforcement has been able to determine and apparently been able to find a surveillance video image of a person that they're calling a subject. That doesn't mean that they're a suspect. That doesn't mean that there's an arrest warrant. They just want to find out who this person is. This person might be masked in some way. This person might have a backpack or tools with them. We're not quite sure. We haven't seen the image ourselves. We do anticipate that the FBI will release this information this afternoon, perhaps quite imminently, this photograph. That's the gist of basically what we do expect. We don't know if we'll get any other information as well. Obviously, as we've been talking here over the past 10 days, this has been an investigation that has developed some evidence, but has been hurting for some clues as far as exactly who we might be looking for. And it appears that at the moment that might be changing, Kate.
Let me bring in our Chief Justice contributor, Jonathan Dienst. He's also WNBC New York's chief investigative reporter. Jonathan, you had some of this reporting earlier as well. I know it probably matches what Tom is telling us. Do we think we will at some point see this image?
Yes, it's our understanding that sometime, perhaps as early as 12:15 or sometime afterwards, that image will be released to the public. Law enforcement was hoping that perhaps someone internally or with the family might recognize who this person might be, but we're told it's not a very good image. The person is masked, is wearing a backpack, and is not readily identifiable. So they will be putting this out, we are told, seeking the public's help. And it could be the first possible break that they now have a lead, someone to go on to search as a subject in this investigation.
To either of you, we have known that there were cameras at Nancy Guthrie's home for 10 days now. It's a bit surprising that it took this long to recover an image. Do we know why?
Well, it is and it isn't, because what we know is that the Ring camera, according to the Sheriff's Office and the FBI, when they put out a timeline last Thursday, they released that and say one of the first things that they noticed is that the Ring camera had been snatched off the front door. Then there were other cameras, and those other cameras were active. One of them actually alerted, apparently, that there was a person outside the home. But they were really struggling. We're looking at some video now from Friday evening when they were on the rooftop. And actually, at one point here, the FBI appears to take what may be a camera. You're looking at it now there in the center of the screen off of the roof. They had tried every available way, Kate, to be able to try and find on some server somewhere, some backup somewhere, some image of this, because it was not readily available on local storage at the home. So the question now is, were they able, through some profound technical means, find this image on some sort of cloud or server somewhere? Were they able to recover an actual physical camera that somehow had the image cached or saved on it?
Right.
Those are some open questions. We don't know the answer.
Jonathan, just to clarify, you said a moment ago that we may see this image as soon as, did you say 12:15 Eastern time?
That is what we are hearing, that sometime in the next, I would say within the hour.
Within this hour.
We'd expect to hear an announcement as to this image. And again, it's not anyone or anything that anyone recognizes. It's not a shape of a person or a size of anyone that they say, that could be him. They just don't know who it might be, which is why they're going to put it out. Again, the person is masked and apparently has some sort of bag or backpack.
And to be clear, Kate, we would not be reporting this, and certainly the FBI would not be releasing this if they haven't been in touch with the Guthrie family. It's our understanding that process has happened. So the family has been, certainly, it sounds like that they're aware of where this investigation is, and obviously that's a key part of this as well. Sensitivities to them as much as they've been through, of course.
Absolutely. Tom, let me turn to our Chief Justice and National Affairs correspondent, Kelly O'Donnell, who is in Tucson. She's in Nancy Guthrie's neighborhood. Kelly, you've been hearing us talk about this. This could be coming out any time now. What are you hearing there on the ground, and what are you seeing in terms of any law enforcement activity today?
Well, good to be with you, Kate, and we've been working alongside the colleagues there at the desk, trying to get to our sources about all of this, and we do expect that development will be made public. What is so important about it is that in these many days of trying to find actionable information, this is an opportunity for the public to now be engaged. What we have seen here is a sort of shift on the issue related to ransom notes and a lot of the attention that was drawn there. And now we expect more searches here in the area around Nancy Guthrie's home and family homes and in the area. That's expected in the coming days. And authorities have been clear that they want to do more of that. Any kind of imagery is the product of the kind of painstaking work we've talked about a number of times. When there has been this void of new information, work is still being done, and it produces this kind of an update that, again, is about a subject in the investigation, someone that authorities would like to better identify, be able to talk to. And this is that point where engaging the public, we saw from our friend and colleague Savannah, her message, the fourth family video, where she was talking directly to the public about wanting people to provide information or tips. Someone somewhere may know something, and that could be the kind of information that law enforcement can then take action on. We've also seen the collaboration between the FBI and a company called Clear Channel, which is in the advertising business. And across the Southwest region, from California to New Mexico to Arizona to Texas, there are billboards being shown in public to encourage the public to try to come forward with information. So often in these vexing cases, it is ultimately a tip. Someone who overheard something, knew something, the whole range of possibilities can help to direct law enforcement resources. They are considerable resources here. In addition to Pima County, which is, of course, the home-based agency here, FBI has brought in personnel from Phoenix and from other field offices around the country, especially those with special expertise, those who know how to review digital data, and this kind of photo would fit in that category. The cell phone data that can be so difficult to sort through, but ultimately can be very compelling if they can identify numbers they can associate with this case. So this is a critical point that allows the public to be welcomed back into this process in a new way with new information that, as our colleagues there have said, we expect to see made public in a matter of minutes. We've been talking to sources all morning to get a sense of what this means and where it's headed. And so we want to be careful to say this is one step. It is something that can add value, and perhaps it will produce more information. And, of course, the work goes on. There's a 24-hour command center here in Tucson where FBI federal personnel, agents and staff and experts of various job descriptions are at work around the clock going through tips and digital information and all the investigative materials to try to produce the kind of lead that we're talking about right now. Kate?
Kelly, appreciate all of that. Thank you so much. I'm going to turn back to Jonathan and Tom. You're working your phones. You're trying to get more information as we speak. Again, just to recap for folks, we are talking about a new image that shows a potential subject, is the word they're using. And we may see that image within this hour. And we think it was obtained, Tom, from some kind of camera that was on the property of Nancy Guthrie's house. That's exactly right. There were a number of cameras that were at the Guthrie house. There was a Ring camera that was snatched off the front door, and that was approximately 1:48 a.m. Saturday into the Sunday, so that's Sunday morning when she was reported missing. That kind of starts the chain of events here of when authorities first, from an evidentiary standpoint, say, whoa, there's a problem here. So that happens approximately 1:48. And then around 2:10, somebody is seen, and there's some sort of a notification that we're looking at the timeline here now, 2:12 specifically. A camera depicts somebody outside of the house. We don't know what camera that was. It almost seems as if, Kate, that there was some sort of a notification. If you have one of these cameras, you'll get an alert on your phone that says somebody's outside of your home and that there's somebody that's there. But they weren't able to locate the video associated with it because of the way that the system was configured and how it was set up. It just didn't seem like it was keeping a record. Google put its top engineers on it. They were working hard on the case. All the tech companies were reaching out to the sheriff's office saying, what can we do? We'll do whatever we can do to get this done. The FBI also has a number of assets that were there, a lot of their agents, a lot of their teams that are focused on this type of thing to see if they could get any video from any of these cameras. You're looking there at a FBI special agent, part of the evidence response team. This was taken Friday from an NBC drone above Nancy Guthrie's house. That's her house there. And they appear to remove something which could be a camera.
We don't know if that's where this image came
Right.
from or not. It's just too soon to say. But we are told, to what Jonathan was speaking about before, there is some sort of an image here.
Yeah, and it strikes me that this is less than 24 hours since Savannah Guthrie herself posted that video straight to camera asking for help, really begging the public to help them figure something out. And now if we do get this image, again, they're going to be asking everyone in this country to look at that, and if they have any information, to tell authorities.
And we saw in the video yesterday Savannah Guthrie calling this her family's ongoing nightmare. One important point to pick up what Tom was pointing out, that image, they do believe that image was taken from the time, in that timeline, of when that doorbell cam vanished, so 1:20, 2 a.m. So that image is from that. Again, it is grainy. It is a masked individual, we're told, with a backpack, and they're hoping by putting this image out there, by announcing this, by clearing this information and putting it out there, that someone, as you said, somewhere in this country will recognize him, provide a tip. Perhaps he's wearing an item of clothing that someone will recognize, something that will provide a new lead, a new break. But this is a significant development, a step forward in this investigation that's been going on for nearly 10 days now.
And, as Jonathan and I know from a case you and I covered so well in the Boston Marathon bombing investigation, it was a hat. Johar Tsarnaev, who was eventually sentenced to death for his involvement in actually placing one of the bombs, he was wearing a white hat. He was known in the FBI system as White Hat. Who is this guy? And so what we saw there was that there was a backpack, a couple of backpacks, because they were carrying the bombs, had to be substantial in size. That was critical to the investigation. So maybe here somebody points out it's this type of backpack. Or if it's a rare backpack, it was only sold in this area at this certain time. That can help investigators. Of course, they're doing reverse image searches and all the tools the FBI has and reporters have to pore over all of this. But I think, as Jonathan was suggesting there, which is really important in these investigations, sometimes somebody just sees something that sticks out. Or I remember my relative or friend, and I haven't talked to them in a couple of days. As we've been reporting for a week now, Kate, this is a solvable case. There is not a lot of evidence and not a lot of clues, but there are some, and over time you develop them. Let's hope for the Guthrie family that's been put through what effectively emotional torture here, that we can get some answers to.
Yeah, that is everybody's prayer today. Tom, thank you. Let me turn to our NBC News law enforcement analyst, Jim Kavanaugh, who's with us as well. He's been following this case very closely. Jim, I guess I sort of asked this earlier. Why might it have taken this long to get an image from a camera?
Well, I think that's just a technology, Kate. They have to dive through it. The technicians at FBI and also Google or Nest or whoever's camera it is. I think it's very significant if this is a camera from Nancy's property, like Tom just described. If that's the case, it's very significant. It's a subject they want to interview. But I've had these on many cases. We had it on the Eric Rudolph case where he killed a Birmingham policeman when I was agent in charge in Birmingham, and that tied into the Atlanta Olympic bomb case, and we had a picture of the bomber with a backpack, and it was just a blob, and it went on for years. We couldn't identify him. We just saw it in the two bombs at Capitol. Image of the bomber video was released, and it took years to identify him. But here's what they want to do. If they can get that image out and say to the public writ large, look, do you know somebody who looks like this? And do you know where they were last Saturday night, Sunday morning at 2 a.m.? Were they gone under any unusual circumstances? You need to call us. And if in addition you've ever heard them utter anything about the Guthrie family, pre the event, the crime, or post the event, before or after, have they discussed it? Call us. Call us if you have somebody that looks like this. Just that. Call us if you have somebody that looks like this that you don't know where they were last Saturday night and you found that odd. And call us if somebody looks like this ever mentioned the Guthrie family. Because there may be just some small identifiers like Tom described. Just a little thing on the backpack that looks unique. Something like that may help break this case. Because what the agents need here now is an identity of the subject to interview. They got to interview the subject. And as Jonathan said, if this ties in with the timeline, at that time of morning, You want to talk to a guy that's skulking around Nancy's house at 2:30 in the morning when she disappears, clearly. So it's an important lead, and I think they have to leverage the public even more. Tweak their minds, get their minds thinking, I should call. It may be something small, but I should call. And that's how you break it.
Jim, thank you so much. Just to refresh and remind people what we're talking about right now at this hour, law enforcement is expected to release a surveillance photo showing a potential subject in the ongoing disappearance investigation of Nancy Guthrie, the mother of our colleague Savannah Guthrie. Let's go to Liz Kreutz, NBC News' Liz Kreutz. She is outside the Pima County Sheriff's Office. Liz, we know from Jonathan and Tom's reporting that potentially they're going to release this image within this hour. Do you have any more specific information about what local law enforcement is doing?
At this time, Kate, it really feels like the FBI is taking over a large part of this investigation, with the sheriff's deputies here really referring and deferring to the FBI. What I can tell you is that one of the most frustrating parts over the past 10 days has been the lack of images and video coming out. Part of that is simply a product of a series of unfortunate events. The fact that the landscaping of the neighborhood made it really hard for many of the neighborhood homes to catch any kind of footage of the street by Nancy Guthrie's home, because of the fact that it was so dark in that neighborhood, no street lights, and the fact that a lot of the vegetation is so tall, blocking many of the homes. And then another issue was just the fact that they've had trouble finding any kind of footage from Nancy's Nest cameras, because according to the sheriff's department, she didn't have a subscription. And if you didn't have a subscription, then it wasn't necessarily saving that footage. So what we know is that the sheriff's deputies and the FBI investigators have been working with the tech companies, and Google has confirmed to us that they have been working with the investigation here to try and see if on their end they are able to retrieve any of that data, if it was saved. And that's a long, tedious process. There's a subpoena involved. And so it will be interesting to find out if this has been a product of them being able to work with Google and the tech companies to find that image. But again, even though, as Jonathan and Tom are saying, it might be a grainy image, it might not show a lot, this is a huge, significant development after what has been an agonizing wait here over the past 10 days with no clues so far.
Liz, thank you so much. I want to bring in NBC News law enforcement analyst Evie Pompouras, who's with us as well. Evie, so many questions outstanding here. We haven't seen this image yet, but we do expect that law enforcement will be putting it out pretty soon. We'll see how soon. If you were part of this investigation, can you sort of walk us through how this all might have happened? What might have led to the point we're at right now?
So there's a couple of things here, and Liz and I actually had talked before about a couple of things with regarding the video cameras and the security. A lot of folks make that error that when they put up cameras that it's recording, and it keeps that recording. And that's really paramount when it comes to security, to keep imagery and recordings for a period of time so that you can have it to go back to look at. So that's one area of concern. The other area of concern, and I'm glad Liz just brought this up, is that area. It's a very dark, a very desolate area. And one of the concerns I have, again, we don't have that image yet, but is what the quality of that image is going to be, how grainy it's going to be. Are we going to be able to see anything with that? Now, the one positive thing with that is not just people in the area if they notice someone, but let's flip it from a different standpoint. Anybody else, often, not always, but often individuals will do something like this, may have communicated something to someone else, said something to someone else, or perhaps if they were going to buy equipment, rope, different things to pursue something like this or rent a vehicle, this might now trigger other folks that maybe that this person had contact with to say, hey, wait a minute, there's someone that looks somewhat like this person who came and rented a vehicle for me. Or, hey, there's someone who came into my hardware store. So that's other stuff that we can potentially start to get information on. So it's not just what did they see in that area, if somebody in that area saw anything, but people who potentially had contact with the suspect or suspects, right? And then perhaps say, you know what, so-and-so is acting peculiar. So-and-so said something to me. Maybe let's look into that. So I think that's going to yield us a lot of great information. I do have some concerns from an investigative standpoint. I do understand from the beginning, probably when you have an elderly person and they go missing, most often we look at it as maybe they went out, they got lost, something happened there. My concern is with the crime scene in general. And I've just again, I am not boots on the ground, but from the reporting I've seen, it seems as though there's a lot of people who have had very close access to the home. And that concerns me with touching evidence in the area, gravel marks, tire marks on the ground, footprint marks, because a lot of that now has become tainted, which makes it much more difficult from a forensic standpoint to see what's going on. So I think not securing tightly this area, the home, even drone footage, and I know it's great for us here at NBC, we've got great drone footage of watching the FBI doing their investigation, but from an investigative standpoint, that is a bit concerning to me that we and others have not been pushed out so they can truly secure the crime scene. So I think that that's going to be a bit of an issue for them. And again, the longer this goes out, it does become harder to solve. And I think it's not even about solving this. At the end, it is about finding Savannah's mother and making sure she is safe. That's really the critical point of this investigation.
Evie, thank you so much for that perspective. Appreciate it. Tom, I just want to check in on that point. I mean, just the timeline of what's happened here. In the initial hours, they did think it was a disappearance, clearly.
Right.
But it seems like the sheriff wasn't sure whether there was, a crime or not. Am I right?
Well, I think initially, it was reported as a disappearance.
Released an actual video, and we're looking at it now. Ed and Jake, are you able to see what he's doing?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you. So FBI Director Kash Patel just 2 minutes ago released new images. One of them is just another, two of them are still images of this assailant walking up to Nancy Guthrie's front door. But then the videos, one of them has him holding his glove over the Nest camera and then walking backward and getting a tool or a rock.
No, it's not a tool.
What is he getting?
It looks like he goes back. He goes back out from the porch and grabs some shrubbery off the ground or grass
he's grabbing
or something.
Shrubbery. Okay.
And it looks like he was trying to cover the.
Oh, he's
ring
trying
camera.
to block the Nest camera. Okay,
So it looks
I
like
see.
he's trying to.
And that's the second image, the second video, I should say, of him taking this shrubbery, these plants from the yard and trying to block the camera.
And so at some point he gives up on that and then just decides
and then he
to
just
take
decides
the camera.
to take the camera altogether. But while he was doing that, the camera was indeed recording, and because of the work the FBI and the Pima County Sheriff, working with the private sector, working presumably with the folks behind these Nest cameras, they were able to get this video. And we're almost 10 days into this missing persons case, but it is pretty impressive information that they were able to get.
I do wonder, Jake, as I'm watching this, we're all trying to figure out, is this someone who planned this deliberately? How long was this planned for? But this suggests to me, and people smarter than me can opine, but you would think you'd know that there was a camera there. It almost like he seems unprepared to cover it up. Like he seems to me like if you knew the camera was there, you would have brought something to cover it up, or you would have just knocked it off.
Or gone right to it. It does suggest, and you and I are not sleuths, but just as humans watching this, it does suggest a lack of familiarity with the security in the front porch.
But then the way he's dressed and covered up and clearly prepared, I mean, the gloves, I mean, there's not an ounce of skin. Clearly someone who's probably thinking, I don't need to drop any kind of DNA around this scene whatsoever.
Yeah,
so
although, as Brianna points out, if you zoom in on the close-up of the mouth in his face mask, it does seem as though there could be a mustache there. It's unclear. But let's bring in Josh Campbell, our colleague who used to work for the FBI. Josh, correct me if I'm wrong, but these images seem potentially very valuable. They are much more clear on this suspect than images we've seen related to the United Healthcare executive killing or the Charlie Kirk assassination. And both of those resulted in alleged murderers being captured. These seem even better in terms of the quality and in terms of what's revealed in the images.
Absolutely, and this shows you the advancement in this camera technology that's now available to just the average consumer at their homes. And as you mentioned, in other cases, we have seen where there's a suspect who maybe walks by a camera on a street, and then you get some type of image. Of course, what's so notable here is that the camera is at the front entryway of this home where this person is, appears to be attempting to be entering. So you get all these different views of this individual. The point that you gentlemen made just a second ago, I think, is spot on. When you see him coming up, I say him, the person, possible subject here, it looks like this person then goes and finds some type of foliage or plant or flower or something there, perhaps with the intention of trying to obscure that camera. We do know that the camera itself was eventually removed, and that is why authorities have been taking so much time in order to try to access this image. The FBI says that they were working with private sector companies. When information is deleted, that doesn't mean it just is completely gone. Oftentimes these computer analysts can go through and look in what's called the slack space of different hard drives, depending on where information might be backed up to, in order to try to resurrect some of that imagery. But you're spot on, Jake, that this is crystal clear. This is certainly much clearer than I think many of us were actually expecting. We do see some other things in this video as well. Obviously, the person appears to be trying to obscure not only their face, but you see the gloves that are on there. As I was mentioning earlier, again, there's a lot we don't know, but criminals these days are often smart in the sense that they don't want to leave it behind any type of DNA or fingerprints. And so that is the question here. Is that why this person is going through these lengths to try to, shield this person's hair to, ensure that no fingerprints actually make their way in? And then the last point I don't know, Jake, is that there's a lot that investigators would have been assessing before they even release this publicly. And that is every single item that you see on this individual, the backpack, the gloves, the clothing, all of that will be analyzed to try to determine where it came from, what companies sell that. Was there someone who recently was, in a particular retail store buying that type of material? It takes a lot of work. It's tedious, but that's what would be underway.
And one last thing before I throw it back to you, Brianna and Boris, is that Savannah Guthrie, obviously whose beloved mother was taken by this man, by this miscreant, just posted the 4 images that were initially released by the FBI from the Nest camera. Presumably she'll also post the other ones. But she posted all 4 of them, and she wrote, "We believe she is still alive. Bring her home. Anyone with information, please contact 1-800-CALL-FBI, 1-800-CALL-FBI, or the Pima County Sheriff's Department, 520-351-4900. That's 520-351-4900. So Savannah getting those images out as well, and I'm sure so many of her colleagues who have millions of followers will do that as well. And somebody out there knows who this is, and somebody out there will do the right thing and call the FBI.
That is certainly the hope. Let's bring Josh Sherrard back in. And Josh, as we're now watching the videos, what do you pick up on from seeing this person moving around outside Nancy Guthrie's home that would be perhaps useful for those who know this person, who have seen this person, to be able to identify them